The Nelson Tasman Council's open, and the local will agree to go here. Kia te mā, te mā atanga, te taua mai I Rangimaro, te taua mai I kaha, I te aroha o ngā tina kaupapa, te ai whai ki.
Thank you.
Can I, we've been bumped by cricket to this room, and it just makes it a little bit more difficult for me to see around the table colleagues like Mel. So if you are requiring to speak, both stretch out, but also don't hesitate to say so orally. I can acknowledge our two colleagues that are on the net, Rachel and Roha. And again, if I can just keep the eye out, and if you are able to use the signal if you're hand on it, just possible for us.
And me and Nick, I will just turn my camera off, but just turn it on if I'm going to put my hand up to speak.
The sound quality is really good, Rachel, but as you please, I'm more than happy with that. I have apologies from Mayor Tim King and from Councillor Paki. Is someone prepared to lead the day? Thank you, Stuart. Seconded by Kit, that they be accepted. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Are there any declarations of interest specific to today's agenda items? There are none. Can we please first consider the minutes of the joint shareholders meeting of 22nd of August? Has anybody got any concerns about that record of our meeting? Would the Deputy Mayor Stuart be prepared to move the adoption? Moved by Stuart, seconded.
I'll do that.
Thank you, Mel Courtney. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
And with respect to the confidential minutes of the 22nd of August.
Happy to move.
Happy to move. Thank you, seconder.
I'll do the same again if you like.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Contrary, no. Carried. There is no public forum, and so we come straight on to the item with respect to the 6-monthly report, and hand over to Nikki and Mike to take us through this.
Thank you. I will present this report. So this, as you'll be aware, the Infrastructure Holdings Limited, Port Nelson and Nelson Airport presented their half-yearly report to the Joint Committee on the 12th of March. So this is formally receiving these reports into the record. I just do note I made a small mistake in paragraph 4.1 where I'm referring to Nelson Airport's revenue compared to last year. Last year's revenue was 8.3, so just like a small correction there, but happy to take any questions.
Okay, so they are now subject to discussion. More than happy to take questions of our officers on those. Can I just note that particularly Port Nelson is meeting its limits. How does it affect the budgeted dividend streams for our two councils as a consequence of the financial performance, particularly of Port Nelson being less than where we were expecting? Do we still receive the same dividends?
Through the chair, that's a very good question, and probably something that we should discuss when we look at the statement of intent and public excluded. I've got some commentary on that in that report.
I'm happy to take it at that time. Any other questions from colleagues on the 6-monthly reports? People happy, Larry? I'm happy to move from the chair the resolution under 7.2 that the Shareholders Committee receives those two reports, or actually three: Infrastructure Holdings, Port Nelson Limited, and Port Nelson Airport Limited. Do a second? Thank you, Councillor Dowling. All those in favour, please say aye.
Me, Nick,
Aye.
sorry,
Aye.
before we, sorry. I just wanted to make a comment, if it's possible, in regards to Tasman Bay's Heritage Trust.
Well, that's the next item on the agenda. We're still on the Infrastructure Holdings and the like. So can I just
Sorry,
deal
okay,
with
yep, absolutely.
we can just deal
100%,
with
sorry, I
the
thought you'd
half-yearly
taken them all
report.
at once.
So, no, we're going to do that one separately. So all those in favour of us receiving those half-yearly reports, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Contrary, no, that is carried. We now come to item 7.2, and I'd like to hand over to Martin and Lucinda on behalf of the Heritage Trust to present their 6-monthly report and the draft statement.
Kia ora. Can I invite Lucinda and Belinda to come up to the table?
Can I tell you what I think would work best for us, and particularly those on video, and sorry to be bossy, would be to have the two of you sit down that end. It just makes it a little bit easier for those, particularly on the internet. We'd like to grab those two sticks down the table. Mike, we're happy to have you sit round and take seat for change. Yeah.
Kia ora all. For the report, I will take as read. Maybe questions. I can have Lucinda and Belinda here to answer any of the questions around the SRI, the half-year report.
My preference would be to take one at a time. So let's deal with any questions, firstly, on your 6-month report, and then we'll deal separately. So was there any comments that either of you wish to make and highlighting any elements of the first 6 months of this financial year?
No, I just take that as read. We've had a good year. Obviously, we've had a couple of weather events that struck us last year. That's outside the 6-month period that we're talking about. Which had a bit of an adverse impact. But yes, it's been a successful 6-month period.
Did you note during, obviously we're trying to get a sense of to what degree the visitor sector recovered this last summer. Your report covers the period of December. How were your visitor numbers November, December of 23 as compared with 22, when of course we had storm floods, sorts of, where they are?
They're better. They're not significantly up.
Right.
I mean, I think we had been hoping for a little bit more of a bounce back.
And then just on the education program, I see the contract runs to the end of the 25 calendar year next year. When does the renewal process kick off for negotiating an extension beyond that? Is that an issue for this year, or do we get into that not till 25?
I believe it will be for next year. The last time that was renewed, it was quite a long process. It actually took a couple of years, but that was because there was a major change to the funding program. So it should be a simpler process, I imagine, around 4 months.
Do you have any concern with the government, obviously under huge financial pressure and budgetary savings? Do you have any nervousness or smoke signals from the Ministry of Education about that program being at risk? Just listen.
Not that I've heard of, and I am very involved in the sector. I'm a member of the Museums I've had on our board, which is our national organisation. We haven't had any signal that is looking to be cut, but obviously, you know, there is a possibility it may be.
Are there any other questions of either colleagues online or around the table with respect to the 6
Can I just make an observation?
Yeah, Councillor Corner.
You must be delighted with your results, quite frankly. 700 international visitors December.
Yeah.
700. Extraordinary. Just at the time when you need it most, this sort of lift, don't you? You're getting it in all areas, all sectors.
Yeah, we're doing really well, and we've got a really good team. Yes.
Yeah. Have you heard about Rata's investment in the art?
No, any day. We're hoping.
That would just be the icing on the cake.
It's certainly be very well.
Other than that, me and Nick, though, I'm happy.
Would you then be prepared to?
I've got a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Rachel.
No problem.
On the 6-month report, floor yours, Rachel.
Thanks. It's kind of not specifically on the report per se, but just on the ARC project, which Councillor Courtney had raised. Morena, Lucinda, lovely to have you here, and thanks for the report. I noted the article about the impact of the weather the heavy rain over the weekend. I'm really sorry to hear, you know, of the impact that that's having on your team at that facility, and you know, just reading about I guess the anxiety that staff have every time there's, you know, a weather event. I think that's, you know, something as, you know, that we should take note of. And I really wanted to know whether there's more that we could do, both councils, to be supporting the kind of advancement of the project. I mean, obviously we've committed financially, but is there more that we could be doing? Could we be helping with advocacy to funding organisations or to central government?
Thank you so much for the question, and I do want to acknowledge your concern for the staff that we have working in those conditions. We've got really good conditions, but just the anxiety that the staff have to go through every time we have an incoming weather event, the time spent preparing, the lack of sleep, not being able to sleep, not knowing what's going to happen. It does take a really hard toll on the staff, and we shouldn't be putting people through that. Yes, advocacy would be a key thing. We've got to get the Ministry of Culture and Heritage over the line to fund this project. That's absolutely beneficial. So anything we can do in terms of advocacy with the minister or with other ministers to support the project would be incredibly helpful. So yes, please.
Thanks, Lucinda. And I wonder if that's something that the Mayor's office could, if Martin could follow that up with the Mayor's office after the meeting.
That would be wonderful. The only other thing I would add is that we're launching that campaign on the 6th of June, the fundraising, the public campaign, and we'd really like possible support for that.
Thanks, Rachel. Matthew Bid.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. You said the numbers haven't bounced back as far. Do you know who's missing? Or is it just over the board? Or is there a sector that has not come back?
That is a very good question. We haven't identified that. We haven't drilled down to that in our visitor data. We are doing some surveying at the moment, so that's something that I could look into, but it's a really good question.
Matthew, there was some discussion with the Nelson Regional Development Agency and their tourism advice, and they're preparing a note for me because there's been some media inquiries about how the tourism recovery sector, and I'll make sure I share that with you because that may provide you with some additional information beyond New Zealand on what's going on in that tourism sector.
Well, any organisation which has data that can tell you that is always helpful to, you know, because if it's just one sector that's missing, it's easy to do something about.
Good point, thank you.
Over to the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Nick. For you, Lucinda, just that I'm looking at 4.5 where it talks about the RC Capital project has progressed significantly in this period. Are you able to update us on that and anything further since the report was written? I guess we're all quite interested in how that project.
Yeah, absolutely. Belinda is the project manager, and I would like to ask her to give the update.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're really pleased with the progress that our design team has made. So we are in the very final stage of design. So we've gone through concept, preliminary, developed, and the detailed design. So this is the stage we have to complete in order to be ready for building consent. This will be completed. Today there's some people doing a final potholing survey to make sure all the utilities are in the right places and are accessible. And then we'll be able to submit for building consent in May. That puts us in a really strong position to say that we are a shovel-ready project when we apply to the Ministry for Culture and Heritage. Our number one risk at this point is in terms of funding. We do need that Ministry of Culture and Heritage funding, and although we're confident about that funding, we know that that fund isn't going to open until after the budget on the 30th of May. So this means that although we could be ready to start construction in July, that's unlikely to happen because that Ministry of Culture and Heritage funding, that fund simply won't have opened and been agreed in time.
So we're doing what we can to get Minister Goldsmith down here. He's the Minister for Culture and Heritage. We've invited him to a couple of events. One is that 6th of June campaign event that Lucinda mentioned. And the other event would be the opening of our significant Pākehā exhibition in July. So yeah, funding is the main concern. That's what is making my hair grey, to be honest.
Oh, thank you for that.
Oh, just for let Stuart finish the bit, please.
Thank you for that. That's really appreciated. Obviously, you're doing a lot of work. How much are you looking for from the ministry?
The Ministry of Culture and Heritage, we intend to apply for around 6 million. And we've been told by staff that that is an amount that is acceptable in terms of what we're seeking. The Forrester Gallery, which is an art gallery in Waamaru, received 6 million. And the Canterbury Museum has received significant that recently.
Excellent. Good luck with it. I hope it goes well.
Thank you very
And
much.
just a quick sub, the fund opens in July.
We're not
When-
sure when it opens. It opens at the minister's discretion, and we've been told that it won't be until after the 30th of May.
When the budget is read. Do we have any sense on previous funding rounds for the regional museums facility as to the length of time? In other words, what would be your expectation of getting an affirmative or negative decision? Is it July, August, September? How many months after applications open? What time do you go through a closure and assessment?
Around 3 months, so.
Around 3 months. So
Yeah, 3 months. But
Crunch
we will be working really closely with the advisors there in terms of preparing the application.
So reasonable expectation is crunch time is going to be about August, September. That's right. Sorry, Kristen.
Thank you through you, Mia. Lucinda, great to see in your statement of comprehensive income, such a turnaround with 6 month period. It's kind of, quite out there in terms of what we're seeing in the economy. So that must be very, very pleasing. I just wanted to check my understanding with regards to the ARC project. So we're now talking about 14.9 capital cost. Previously, we were at 12.4.
Yes.
So we've had a 2.5 mil uplift, which is understandable given the inflationary costs and construction costs. I just wanted to check my understanding then of what your underlying assumptions are with regards contributions for the capital costs from the two respective councils. Am I right in assuming that your underlying assumption is that their contributions are as currently provided for in the draft LTPs?
Yes, correct.
Okay, I just wanted to check that underlying assumption. Thank you.
Just one thing I wouldn't mention while we are talking about funding is that the Trust has also been working with Jenny Giblin, who is a fundraising advisor who's got a lot of projects over the line, including the Forrester Gallery, Art Gallery in Whanganui, and many other projects. She's got 100% track success record with Ministry of Culture and Heritage, so with partners and advisors.
I have one
Can I
other
just speak to the question that you asked?
Yes, and then I'll come back to you, Kristen.
About the statement. In that statement, we show a profit as opposed to a loss. Was that what you were referring to in that 6 monthly report?
Totally.
So you'll notice that is around about 300,000 better off than what was predicted. Now, need to get clarification, but that may be because of the funding that's arrived that hasn't been allocated. Is that right? Or hasn't been spent?
We would be looking, and we are conscious that there is funding coming in and out, but we are looking at that we should be making breaking even at year end. If not,
It's not quite as good as it looks.
All right, if I can clarify, so you're basically saying hypothetically, you've had some grant funding in relation to the ARC, which you've had to record as income. Got it. Okay, thank you. Through you, Mia, Nick, I just wanted to explore a little bit more because you've talked about the impacts on staff working out of the Isle Park facility and how stressful that is. And yeah, I've read the news article as well. It must be a terrible situation. I mean, is there a case to say that we actually need to decamp and put it all in storage? I mean, if we can't do anything to actually make the working conditions suitable for staff, what are our other short-term options?
Essentially, we would, anytime you move a collection is a massive undertaking. So moving it twice would be, it has a lot of risk involved because every time you move an object, there's a risk of damaging it. So we really, really only want to move it once. We've dodged a number of bullets. Obviously, we didn't quite dodge the one last week. We were very lucky it wasn't worse. But certainly we really only want to move the collection. We want to be able to move it into a situation that's actually going to be able to look after it properly.
So I'm assuming then that from a risk-based approach, thinking about the point you raised in terms of health and safety of staff, that you're comfortable on your assessment of risk, that we should continue to do what we are currently doing.
Yes, that's the position of the board, that this is certainly the best outcome.
Okay, any other questions on the 6-month report? Sorry.
On the Chris Hill, councillor Gonaway ward.
Yes, yeah, no, got you.
Just in the here, so the relationship between museum and outer districts for Tasman, all the various little museums. Thinking about that, particularly in mind of the Anaweka Waka piece, which is of absolute national significance and of international significance. And it sort of brings up, I think, questions around structure, you know, through the district and to, you know, and I know that the expertise that you have and, you know, technical expertise and support that goes with various museums and other organisations, I'm aware of that. Can you imagine that the museum might extend itself out around something as significant as that piece?
I would imagine, as you say, it is the Anaweka Waka is one of the most significant taonga in New Zealand. It speaks of very, very, very early migrations, and it's absolutely vital that that taonga is protected. And so, absolutely, I'm sure that the trust would want to do anything to support that.
Yeah, just imagining it. You know, we might end up with a Manawhenua Ki Mongora Kapiti Museum partnership and a redevelopment of that council building. Just a really little signal there, but
Getting an early bid in.
yeah,
Way to go.
yeah. But you know, the structure of how the
Can somebody get the AED for mailing, please?
the structure of the provincial museum and the funding from each of the councils, and then these little museums doing their thing. I suppose I'm wondering about, you know, the more than technical support, more than support in kind or what, you know, but actually when a piece like that emerges, a district like ours and a region like ours, I suppose I'm keen to see us be thinking differently. Provincial museum and how it's well based where it is, with all those incredible things there, how it comes around, something like that. Because it's an odd situation to have the Crown at this point still owning it, but it will, the ownership will come into the parties. And to imagine something of such national significance, one of 5 items of that age in New Zealand, be looked after by our little poor home in the little museum. I mean, it will be done, you know, but
Who's likely to become the new owner, Councillor Hill?
probably the 3 Manawhenua iwi in the Bay and Ngāti Kuia. Yeah.
Okay.
So in terms of nationally, the sector really recognises that we need to do a lot more collaboration. Regionally, I think it's really important that we work together, and I think this is speaking very much outside the brief of the remit of the SOI, but there's opportunities to certainly look at that. Better.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the 6-monthly report? That being the case, I think full resolution we have on the agenda is ready to be received. Why don't we sort of see, move on to the item, the statement of intent. And then I'll probably take as one resolution, the two elements. So, Rachel, did you have a question or comment about the statement of intent?
No, I'm comfortable.
Okay. I did note a comment about the renaming of the facility to get clarity as to whether the renaming exercises around that of the new facility of the museum or the trust, or all three.
It's all three. Essentially, we need to establish one solid identity. It's very confusing, but then Tasman Based Heritage Trust, Nelson Provincial Museum, which doesn't include Tasman in its title, and then a separate name for the art facility. So we wanted to create a unified identity. And we're consulting with Te Whaiau Committee on the process.
Where do you see the final decision on the name of the facility rest?
Ultimately, that would be with the trust, but I do see iwi having an extremely important view as to what that name would be.
I think any name change, you should consider that as the owners of the facility, which is the two joint councils, and whether that's a decision for this joint shareholders committee or whether it is for the complete meeting of the joint councils. I think as the owners of the facility, it would need ultimately a back to us. All right. Any further questions with respect to the statement of intent?
May I ask a question?
You certainly can.
Thanks so much. Yeah, just want to clarify, are we the co-owners of the facility? Is that, I mean, the trust I would have thought the trust owns the facility, but it would be good to know if it's otherwise.
I had this fascinating discussion with Nikki the other day, is trying to understand the consolidated accounts about our assets and liabilities. Nikki, could you give us the in a legal sense, as a council controlled organisation jointly, is the final owner of buildings and facilities of the Heritage Trust, who technically is the owner?
I think it's owned by the trust. Because it is a trust structure. And we wouldn't consolidate it in our accounts because of that it's a trust. So it's we don't have control because each council's 50-50.
It is a CCO. It is a CCO under the Local Government Act.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So I come back to my point. Yeah, Rachel.
Sorry, I was just going to say, so they are obviously, you know, the museum and the storage facility are incredibly valuable regional cultural fixtures, and they operate as a council controlled organisation, but they're not actually owned by council. I think in terms of the naming, I think my approach or suggestion would be that maybe the trust takes a kind of for information approach with us, kind of, rather than the councils. I may have misunderstood, but I'm not sure if councils should be making the decision about the naming and rather just kind of being updated.
Well, the view I would take is they are council controlled organisations. And ultimately, we are the elected representatives of the community. These are facilities of which every one of the 118,000 people that live within Nelson and Tasman have an interest. But I'd be happy, perhaps, Nikki, if we could get some legal advice as to if the trust want to change its name or the names of its facility, what do the legal constraints around the council-controlled organisation provide on that? I'm quite relaxed. I'm just about wanting to understand what is the correct process. I also think it's important when you're starting a conversation about your name that we're all clear at the beginning as to who actually gets to make the decision at the day as a CCO.
Absolutely, and we do want to do a lot of consultation through that process. Should work for everybody. Happy with us.
I'm quite relaxed. The one piece that I think is very important is that we have two distinct communities of about equal size, Nelson, Tasman. And so in my view, incorporating a name that reflects the partnership of the two communities to me seems an important priority. And then the second thing, of which I think you make a fair point in the statement of intent, is having different names for the trust and then different names for the facility, and then you're adding an archives facility onto it as well. For a little community, I prefer to have things that are sweet and simple, the good old KISS principle. So I'm not at all uncomfortable. I just think at the beginning it would be good to get clarity around, well, okay, if there is to be a name change, where does that final decision on it get made? And I think it would be helpful to have some agreement with the trust around what that process is going to be. So as you are engaging, everybody can be quite clear what it is. I also sort of feel that at the conclusion, which we're all hoping for, of the ARC facility, would be a good time for all of that to take into effect, would just be my sort of reactions as one of the two mayors. All right, are there any other comments on the statement of intent for our heritage, Tasman Bays Heritage Trust? Matthew?
Where did we land just then?
Who? No, what we've said is that that we're going to get some advice from officers
Okay.
as to where that is. So I think the first step is to say, well, under the existing trust deeds and agreements we have with the Tasman District Council, where would it sit? Let's get that advice, and then post that advice, I think we need to have some discussion. So at the beginning of the process, we've got some idea, the trust does this, but do they get to make the final decision or not? So no, we're not making that yet, but I'm just flagging that I think it would be important for us to have a good understanding. People relax.
But just I think also, given that it's the trust that would be leading this process, rather than like leading the process of the consultation and the name change, rather than kind of, you know, I guess in consultation with the councils, we wouldn't want to overreach or anything.
The only thing that, and I'm going to wait until I hear the legal advice, Rachel, it would seem surprising to me if the name of a council-controlled organisation, Tasman Bays Heritage Trust, constitutionally a CCO between two councils, that the name of the Tasman Bays Heritage Trust could be changed without the approval of the two councils. That to me would seem odd. But let's get the advice. I suspect my instinctive view is that it would require the approval of the two councils to change the name of the trust. But in terms of changing the name of the facility and your trading name, I suspect you could do that by yourselves. But when I note in the statement of intent, one of the purposes is to try and get some consistency between them, suggests that we just need to get agreement at the front end of the process as to how that's going to work. Yes.
Do you want to change the resolution to reflect that?
No, I think I'd like to get some advice from Nikki and from the officers. I'd like the officers to have a bit of a chat with the trust and to sort of come back to us and say, hey, look, what do we think is the right process for this? But I think the first step is getting that legal advice. Matthew, are you comfortable with that?
Yes.
So just so that everybody's clear, that is the expectation that the joint shareholders meeting has, is that the next time that we have the Tasman Bays Heritage Trust before us, is we'll have a bit more advice about what that process will be. And look, I've just done spare of the moment what I sort of instinctively think is correct, but I want people to correct it if it isn't. That sound okay, Mark? Good. Deputy Mayor Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor Nick. I'm happy with that as well, and I'm happy to move the resolutions, including 4, which is that the draft stated that meets the committee's expectations as set out in the letter of expectation stated in December.
Good. Is there a second for that? Thanks, Councillor Hill. All those in favour of those resolutions being adopted, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. Carried. That is concluded my understanding of the agenda as we now move to the confidential section. Our agenda lists the reasons under the Local Government Official Information and Things Act 1987 for moving into confidential business. I'm going to move from the chair that we do so. Is there a second? Thank you, councillor Mayling. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, say no. We move into confidential business and move to that audio back recording. On my agenda notes, I think it's councillor Hill.
Yeah.
Include us with a karakia, if that's okay.
Kara ki tātou, ki o hora te marino, ki whakapapapona mu, te moana, aroha atu, aroha mai, tēnā tātou, tēnā tātou, tēnā tātou kapu.
Kia ora, thank you all.